things come together and it's alright. That's when you remember who you are.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday here, the West Coast. We got a good spread today. Kind of coming off the back of Google I/O. So we have some analysis, some analyst opinions on how that went. We're going to take a look at Android XR a bit more. The Verge had a hands-on with it, so we could actually see what it's like in person, not from Google's mouth. Then we got some gaming industry. Xbox mobile game store ran into the same problem, or a similar problem to what Epic Games is ran into with Fortnite. Apple's kind of pushing off the launch of the Xbox mobile game store, and Microsoft obviously doesn't like that. GTA developers, Take-Two Interactive, owners of Rockstar who make it, are planning a $1 billion stock offering, which is kind of interesting that they're raising $1 billion before the launch of GTA. So we'll take a look at that, and then we got a lot of AI news. We're gonna kind of look at how Google is changing the way search. We kind of talked about this yesterday, but changing the way search works. Less list of links, more picking for you now with AI. And we have an interview with the Cloudflare CEO, kind of on his opinions of zero-click search, he's calling it, and how it's hard to be a content creator now. So, and we got some OpenAI news and stuff. Yeah, let's just get right into it. Excuse me. Let's start with OpenAI. Let's start with the AI stuff, I guess. So we actually have we have some dissenting opinions. We have the OpenAI COO saying that there's no reason to believe AI will destroy jobs. And then we have Karen Howe, who wrote the book Empire of AI and is a tech journalist. But she talks more about the safety and ethical concerns about how we are not taking this seriously. So yeah, let's start with the OpenAI CEO and see what he has to say. This is from a day ago.
Demand has been extremely healthy, surprisingly healthy, and that's why we're here. So
I don't really understand this kind of like, I don't know if it's a fallacy, but that AI won't take jobs. Like, it will, and I think that's kind of the point, though. So I don't really like know this like line of thinking or this like rhetoric, you know, that they're using. I don't really know where it's kind of like going, I guess. Like they're going, AI's gonna take jobs. The whole like AI's gonna make more jobs than they take, like that one's more of like a I doubt.
in the UK, in Paris, and now opening an office in Munich, we like to be where our customers are, and increasingly we're seeing a lot of customers in Europe want to work with OpenAI and want to use these tools. So it's actually
and we're actually have a story about Europe later, because I've been covering kind of the Europe's intersection with the American tech industry, and how they are a bit scared of it. But that's peculiar that he mentioned Europe, because Europe doesn't really have an OpenAI like company. They have Mistral, but Mistral's like not up to the standard of like the other frontier AI companies and models. Like they are much further behind. So peculiar.
Trend-wise, I think the story hasn't really been told, but European businesses now are top 3 in the world for OpenAI products. Paid subscribers of our consumer products actually are top 3 in the world also. And so there's an incredible demand, and I think an incredible excitement about what it is that we're doing.
That's interesting too, because most of OpenAI stuff is not available in Europe. Like immediately, like they always get like the fucking crumbs
about what it is that we're doing.
How does
like
that
the rest
break
of the world
down
in
sector
general
by sector in terms of the most demand that you're seeing, and maybe where some of the laggards are in terms of adoption?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty universal. So we see a lot of demand, for example, in financial services, in healthcare, a ton in education. Just to give you a couple examples, so in financial services, we work very closely with DKB in Germany. We work very close with NatWest.
AI's great at analysis.
These are organizations with really big
Synthesizing
kind of logistical challenges of dealing with a lot of data, a lot of customers, a lot of complexity in the workflow. And that's what these tools do really well, is they bring the ability for kind of intelligence enhancement to workflow, right? To be able to say, okay, how do we actually bring more context in, more data in, and be able to actually use really powerful models like O1, O3, our new 4.1 model, our coding model, and be able to enhance the output of the people that work with these tools.
Are you seeing any pushback at all on pricing from?
The problem though is there's like I feel like within the AI space there's too many opinions go against, you know, one another, and even within their own company, like Sam Altman has had to say that, like, you know, AI will take, you know, human jobs, or, you know, or something like. I think that for the immediate near term, it's going to be like an assistant, like he's saying, like at these companies, and it'll just slowly start cannibalizing other parts of jobs. You know, like right now, maybe if it's like a single, you know, if there's like 10 things someone does on a job, I'm just making this up, AI can maybe do like 2 or 3. And I feel like that's slowly just gonna, like, you know, start cannibalizing all of the things until, you know, only a few people are needed to use an AI to be extremely productive, or, you know, create like much more work, which results in, you know, them needing less people. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the only jobs left are going to be ones that like just require a human to be there. You know, I feel like healthcare, it's like we probably need a human still, but like there's already like surgery robots and stuff, you know. It's like, I don't know.
From customers, given the developments of companies like DeepSeek?
No pushback on pricing. What we're really seeing, though, is people want more flexibility in how to use the tool. And so as we do more things with the tool, as we bring more features and services to the product, we're going to have to figure out ways to allow people to consume all of that in ways that fit the needs of their enterprise. So one great example is we recently launched a product called Codex. This is kind of like an AI software engineer. You can kind of think of it as almost an agent, a software engineering
like
agent
Jules.
that runs in a separate cloud environment.
It's like Jules for Google, or Copilot, the GitHub, I don't know, whatever Copilot thing could code.
Totally sandbox, but it can do these really complex software engineering tasks for you. And you can imagine a world where you've got a company that employs a lot of software engineers that actually wants to be able to provision a lot of that feature to their software engineers. And so our challenge is, how do you make sure that that company is not limited in their ability to consume that tool? And we have a lot more coming that we think is going to fit that mold.
And you have a lot more coming in terms of the style, in terms of agentic AI and AI agents. And what does that pipeline look like in kind of 12 months ahead?
Yeah, we think 2025 is kind of the year of agents, and we look at it as based on model capability. So as the models are able to do more things, they're able to use tools, they're able to reason, they're able to write code. All these things start to come together to actually enable them to do much more complex works.
We've heard
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where ChatGPT as a platform is now falling behind the likes of at least Gemini. I still think Copilot is a little, like, their execution has been pretty, like, not the best. And I've heard that after Microsoft Build. I was reading this morning about some instances where it's just like, it's still not really, like, maybe production ready. But I do think Gemini and what they're doing is going to put pressure on ChatGPT and OpenAI to make ChatGPT a better, like, platform. Because, like, for example, I've been using it a lot more recently just because I want to, try it out more and be, just understand the platform more. And I've been wanting to use, like, tasks for, like, content creation. Like, hey, like, send me, latest news on this topic, for example. But it's the tasks are so restrictive. Like, it can only, like, half the time it doesn't work. It doesn't, like, actually search. But it's like, it was, like, hyped at launch, and now it's just, like, like, the features kind of a nothing, nothing burger, I guess, now is the point. Like, Gemini now, has, they could just go and do shit for you on the web, browse, like, with their new, like, $250 subscription. It includes much more and is much better, in my opinion, better offering if you're comparing to OpenAI's, like, Pro or whatever their $200 plan is. Their Pro plan. ChatGPT, I guess, is a platform just falling behind, I guess, it seems like, with now what, like, Microsoft and Google are doing. The integrations of ChatGPT are little to none. That's been my frustration. Like, I just want it to, like, be able to do, like, simple, like, I guess it's like an MCP server or, like, tools, like, giving it access to, like, my own tools. Like, that's been my restrictions. Like, I want to, like, be able to, like, talk to an API or something, and have it, like, pull in data. Or, like, just have it, like, be better at, like, web searches and stuff without having to use, like, deep research for it to, like, go and, like, visit stuff. Like, it seems like all the, like, agent, like, high, like, type of more high-tech, agent, I don't know, features are just not on ChatGPT, I guess is the point.
For example, from Microsoft, they're cutting 6,000 roles. A lot of those are coder roles. Shopify, Duolingo, and the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, they've all said that they can keep hiring essentially flat because of the use of AI. Is it fair to say that, at least in the short term, AI is capping job growth?
I don't think so. And I think that's because the world is actually gated on resources, on productivity, right? I think if you talk to any enterprise, and we talk to companies all the time, I ask them, what's their number one concern for how they think about the next 5 years of investment? And oftentimes one of the things we hear is, I can't hire enough software engineers. We live in a digital economy. I know I have to transition my product, my services, my business processes into more software-based approaches, but I don't have enough people, right? So how do you now bring a tool to the market that enables a software engineer to be 50% more productive, 2x more productive, right? This is an incredible thing. And so
how does that have anything to do with job growth? That actually goes against his point, I feel like, because now he could give these people this code, they could give someone Codex, and then he doesn't have to and then the company doesn't have to hire any more people. Like, what?
It's actually kind of the way we look at it is, to the extent you can enhance output, right? Then it really is just on the company, the firm, the individual to figure out ways to do new things. And so job growth, the job question will inevitably be different. Like, jobs will change, but I don't think there's reason to believe that jobs will go away.
Stargate is being built out in the US, obviously, with your partners.
Bit of a non-answer.
What about sovereign AI? What about Stargates outside of the US? Are you in conversations with...
That's what I'm saying, bro. What? I don't know.
Governments around the world about building out Stargates? Go away. Stargate is...
So I'm actually curious about this. OpenAI for countries, which is Stargate for around the world. Yeah.
built out in the US, obviously with your partners. What about sovereign AI? What about Stargates outside of the US? Are you in conversations with governments around the world about building out Stargates outside of the US? What does that conversation look like? How many different countries are you talking to at this point?
Well, we see this incredible demand, not only from individuals, not only from companies, but even from governments for how do we start to bring AI kind of into our country, right, into our kind of national consciousness and have it penetrate in a way that, accrues benefit to the average person. That was really the big initiative behind our recently launched OpenAI for Countries, was how do we actually work with governments to design some of these programs? And that includes infrastructure, it includes deploying the models, it includes figuring out how to integrate government services, for example, into ways that would be more AI powered, AI native.
There was a push to change the structure so that it became more of a for-profit structure. That proposal has been reversed. It's now back to a non-profit structure with that public benefit for-profit unit underneath. That structure, we're still waiting for final sign-off. Do you have commitments from SoftBank that $40 billion of investment
I'm so glad he asked this because I had the same question.
Is going to continue in that largely unchanged structure that we're looking at now?
Well, so SoftBank is they're a great partner. First of all, we built what I think is a great partnership with SoftBank, and we're mostly focused on how do we make sure that the structure that OpenAI exists in is set up for the future, and we think that the PBC
and
structure is
SoftBank's
great.
$40 billion is still solid. They're still good for that.
Like I said, we have a great.
He's literally avoiding the question, bro. He's even laughing. Damn, bro. If that doesn't go through, that's actually interesting. That's interesting. I wonder what OpenAI like budgeted that money for. Like if it was just gonna go into like more data center Stargate stuff, or if they needed it for like, like hiring, or I don't know. I imagine it would probably be data centers, but that's crazy. He didn't answer that. That's crazy. Interesting. I wonder what the fate of that is. I guess for context, SoftBank invested $10 billion in OpenAI recently, and then said that they'll get the rest of the money, $30 billion, after OpenAI converts to a for-profit. And now that was kind of stymied, and they're public benefit corporation, that could potentially not go through, since that was a part of the deal. And I imagine it has something to do with like equity in the company or something, or how SoftBank could make money back. But dang, that's crazy. That's crazy. Interesting. All right. And then now this one is on more so the safety concern, or like ethical concerns. So I'm curious what they're saying. The safety bros have kind of chilled out, I think. I don't know how much. Like I think safety safety is kind of is the backbone, or is the AI like killing all humans is like the worst case scenario of AI. And I think people made it clear that could possibly happen, a year or two ago. And then I think it was in people's minds enough to where we're like, okay, let's take this actually seriously. And I hope that was enough for OpenAI. I mainly talk about OpenAI because I definitely trust Anthropic more than OpenAI. But I guess OpenAI, Gemini, Google. It's the big tech companies. That's who I guess I don't really trust as much with this. It seems like they kind of got that, and then they're like, we got it, we're safe, we'll be safe, blah blah blah, and it's just all right, we'll trust you guys, and we're still kind of in that just trust me, bro, because there's no transparency. I've talked a lot about trust in AI. I have a video on my channel. I think it's called do you trust OpenAI or do you trust AI or something? Just kind of a rant I had. But the AI safety bros seem to be a lot smaller faction now than a year or two ago. Not sure, I could be wrong, but it's just more so their voice at least has been quieter. So I'm curious what they have to say.
AI kickstarted the artificial intelligence arms race with the explosive debut of ChatGPT in late 2022. turning the startup into a $300 billion company and founder Sam Altman into a household name. Joining us right now is tech journalist Karen Howe, whose latest book is out today. It's called Empire of AI, Dreams and Nightmares in Sam Altman's OpenAI. The book is a culmination of over 300 interviews conducted over the last 7 years. Karen, thanks a lot for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
You were writing about OpenAI before anybody had any idea what this was. Your first
That's
kind
right.
of take on them was 2019. How did you find them and what did you think?
I was a reporter at MIT Technology Review at the time covering the cutting edge research in AI. And so at the time, OpenAI was a fundamental AI research lab. And that was
She's
why.
like, how did you discover them? Like, you know, like they're such a hidden gem. She's like, oh, I like worked in the industry. Like,
I was tracking them. And what I realized was they were originally founded as a nonprofit, but they were quickly starting to develop commercial intent. They were starting to become competitive and secretive. And that had ramifications for not only the AI world, but potentially the way that AI would be introduced into society all around the world.
What's your biggest concern of the ramifications of that?
The way that Silicon Valley and OpenAI leading the charge has really approached AI development is very much an embodiment of the way Silicon Valley has developed technology over the last decade, which is growth at all costs. They have really chosen to pursue AI models that are extraordinarily large. They require a lot of data, a lot of labor, a lot of computational resources, which has environmental implications. And my greatest concern is that we are pursuing a path of AI development that is extremely harmful to a lot of people around the world.
In terms of jobs?
In terms of jobs, in terms of their environmental health, their ability to access economic opportunity, to access quality information. And
I'm gonna that's an interesting take. I'm not sure. I would assume that like the AI would make that more accessible. The environmental impacts are real, but that's mainly going back. That's kind of going down to the data center, likely because the data centers have environmental impact. Although, again, it's kind of like AI, like AI is just the technology that's on the that's on the top of everyone's minds right now. But like that, like the whole data center debate with AI, it's like literally me streaming right now is using, is going through data center. You watching is going through data center. When you like something on Instagram, it goes through a data center. When you visit a website, it goes through data center. When you clock in for work, it, likely goes through a data center. So I don't know. I guess like that whole like line of thinking is just like a little, disingenuous. I think though the idea is that AI just uses a lot more energy. That's where it's coming from, but I guess it's like people, the like purity of like, oh, like I won't use AI, like uses a lot of water. It's like, okay, well, like you posting on Instagram, like does it too? Like it's, it's like, I don't know, kind of, I don't know. I feel like that like more like that morality view of things is just kind of like not the best take on things. Like morally superior view, I guess is what I'm saying. I hate when people claim moral superiority.
AI is a beneficial technology if we can also mitigate all of the ways that the supply chain of the current
one is
version of
worse
AI
than the other
development.
at the moment.
Yeah, so there are many different types of AI technologies.
But is there a line at which you say to yourself, this is actually going to improve people's lives, it's going to improve productivity to a level where it's going to create...
But I also think the inverse is interesting too, because if the line is here and we're like, we're crossed it, it's also if we're below it, then it's like, that's bad, I guess. we want to work to get it above it to hopefully mitigate some of the other stuff.
Economic efficiency is going to create opportunities, all sorts of things, or do you see that that's sort of a fantasy?
No, so I think there are AI technologies that tackle very specific challenges and are well scoped. That is very different from general AI technologies that are supposedly meant to do anything. If we can target AI towards problems that AI is very good for, optimization problems, computational problems, healthcare.
And it seems like also she's talking about AI in the sense of machine learning, like optimization, like that's like machine learning, which is AI. AI is like an umbrella. And I think the other half would be like generative AI, which is more like what OpenAI is making, where it's like just broadly, general intelligence. I think though, like that's like an industry, like unless you're familiar with that AI in the more technical sense, like that's kind of like a lot of people don't think that like AI's, when people say AI, they think of like ChatGPT. They don't think of like, you know, regression analysis or like data science or like, you know, something like that, or whatever it is, like, you know, like actual like algorithms and like and shit. I think she's like kind of like talking about them in one, or she's saying AI but like meaning generative AI and also the other kind of like, you know, AI, the more legacy kind of AI that's been around a while. So I'm not sure about I think that's like a bit misleading, I guess.
Towards integrating more renewables into the grid. These are things that AI is very good at. They are also well scoped, so it's not nebulous how you should be applying AI in that situation. But right now, these Silicon Valley companies are trying to make everything machines. And when you're trying to make everything machines, not only are they not going to be high quality in everything, people are going to have a fundamental misunderstanding about how they should be using these technologies, and inevitably it is going to harm them. Karen, you're...
To me, that seems like trust. She's talking about trust. It's like they're misleading, you know. It's like, again, it goes back to the trust. And I think though that being transparent about it would help. I don't know. I swear, like, it's funny because I mean I shit talk Sam Altman a lot, but like I swear he's had to say like it's, you know, like he's dampened some of what like ChatGPT can do. Maybe not though. He is a hype man.
One of a number of books that have been written about Sam Altman and OpenAI. Your book was not written with Altman's cooperation. In fact, he wrote something on X recently that's kind of backhanded criticism. He said, there are some books coming out about OpenAI and me. We only participated in 2. No book will get everything right, especially when some people are so intent on twisting things. What happened? Why didn't you cooperate? Because you'd known him for a while. Yeah, because when I published my very first profile for MIT Technology Review, they gave me a lot of access. I embedded within the company for 3 days, and they were extremely not happy that I drew my own conclusions. And so ever since then, I've had a very fraught relationship with the company where I've continued to do my reporting. I've continued to get insider sourcing. I've continued to really grapple with their technology because of my background. I ultimately have a really good understanding of the research and its capabilities. But at the end of the day, OpenAI didn't want to participate in my book. What did you hear from insiders that concerned you that maybe they didn't like? What types of things? There are some people who say, you know, if you listen to Elon Musk or others who are very familiar with this, they think it's the equivalent of like nuclear weapons, and this could end the world.
Yeah, right. That's so funny because I made that same comparison. I make that same comparison, and I didn't say it in the sense to destroy the world. I said it in the sense more so of influence, where OpenAI, we could use our AI to assert influence and to, you know, get people to come onto our side, like nuclear weapons do, or like how there's nuclear powers now. It'll be a similar paradigm with AI, where there'll be like AI powers, where we have like all powerful AIs that we could like unleash on other countries, like we possibly could do with nuclear weapons. I kind of see it more like that, not in the sense that like I think that it'll be used to destroy the world, but like just like influence. But I also say it like I guess they could potentially if we get to a point. I don't know how, but.
Definitely a view. So one example that I heard with respect to the amount of computational resources that are now being used and the supercomputers that they have to build, one employee told me, we are running out of land and energy. The scale at which...
Bro, who the fuck was that guy like yapping with him, like next to him, and just like let this guy? This is Masayoshi-san, SoftBank.
Being used in the supercomputers that they have to build. One employee told me, we are running out of land and energy. The scale at which they're building the models, they actually have run out of places to put the size of the supercomputers that they need, because there is no place in the world where utilities can deliver that much power to one location.
I mean, that's been pretty well documented, the concern about getting more power, right. But we also have the increase in technology that seems to get better and better and better over time. So maybe there's a way to shrink the needs for the computational power.
I think that's exactly, you know, like when we look at other supply chains in history, you know, the fashion supply chain, there were plenty of challenges with the fashion industry. The solution was not to just not wear clothes, right? You still need to have fashion, but we really need to shore up the supply chain in order to access the benefits.
I was going to ask you about the...
Yeah, I mean, we talked... I don't think we're going to watch it on stream, but I was watching the Google I.O. breakout stage with Larry Page, Google founder, and head of DeepMind. I can't remember his name, but they were talking about data centers and energy and the like host was like, you know, like, is it just gonna be a future where it's just everywhere's painted with data centers, you know? And the head of DeepMind was like, we do need a lot more data centers. But he also said, and I think it also came from Sam Altman, that it likely the cost of AI is just going to normalize to the cost of energy, because that's like the biggest resource that it's going to come that we need to like, you know, use AI. And so it'll just slowly go down to what energy costs. And that kind of, you know, goes along with what she said. Like, it's going to be like, we need so much goddamn power, and we can't meet it with renewables. We're likely gonna have to use fossil fuels. Elon Musk in his Tennessee data center, he's using fossil fuels. And he strategically picked that because there was a pipeline that he could tap into for fuel. But then also on the other side, pollution skyrocketed because of in the area because of how much fossil fuels they're burning, and so people didn't like that. And I think that's kind of just a small example of a larger version that could be possibly happening. And unfortunately, with also the Trump administration kind of not supporting a lot of renewables, or at least just R&D, like, if you don't support it, like, I think supporting like research and development so you could at least improve them, like, that should be pretty bipartisan, because there's no denying that, like, solar's like pretty good, you know, wind is pretty good, hydro is like still like one of the most efficient ways, you know, renewable energy, ways to produce renewable energy. Like, there's no denying that those would definitely help curb this problem. And we've also seen, you know, now big tech companies needing much more power in much shorter time, going to nuclear energy, and big tech is honestly creating the nuclear resurgence, at least in the United States. But those are going to take a while still. Like, I'm like 2030 plus. So the power issue is probably one of the more like serious bottlenecks and like just problems that have more impacts on like everyday people. Because, and just continuing the thought, there's already been drama around big tech coming into places using a lot of power, and then because the demand then increases, it increases the cost for normal consumers, especially in places that have for-profit power companies. Like, we have PG&E here in California, even Southern California Edison in like Southern California. Like, they're listed on the stock market. They have, you know, shareholders that they need to go back to that want a return on investment, and like that relationship coupled with now big tech increasing demand via data centers and AI, and then also exacerbated by Trump administration wanting to go back to coal and oil and getting rid of renewables. Like, I feel like it's more so like that kind of vertical, I don't know, energy supply chain or energy problem chain that is just making, like, fucking over the consumer. There's several ways in there, I think, to like help with, you know, like climate and also help the consumer. But unfortunately, it's very politicized. So yeah, just an interesting perspective, I guess. I like what she's saying.
The fascinating relationship that OpenAI has with Microsoft. Some people questioning whether that partnership is fraying. The news yesterday that Elon Musk's Grok.
It is. That we've called this interview's hitting like all the big topics. It is. I mean, I have several. You can find several like shorts. I talk about Microsoft and OpenAI. I say that OpenAI is going through their like emo/goth phase with Microsoft, and like and Sam Altman just like wants Satya Nadella to leave him alone. OpenAI just wants Microsoft to leave them alone. Meanwhile, Microsoft build every single product is built on top of OpenAI models. Like, literally, that was so crazy. Like, literally, it's like Microsoft is building all this shit just on top of OpenAI's work. And I know OpenAI, Microsoft, they have a relationship, but like, it's still crazy. Still crazy. Yeah. Let's continue.
I don't know if you saw, is now going to be in partnership with Microsoft.
Yeah.
Going to run on Azure. You saw Satya Nadella doing effectively a video cast with Elon. That's fascinating, given the fact that Elon has been attacking OpenAI and, frankly, attacking Microsoft. For the last 2 years.
And Sam Altman.
And that's, by the way, that's not the first time that Nadella has done that. He also hired Mustafa Suleyman to lead Microsoft's AI efforts. And Mustafa Suleyman was a DeepMind co-founder, and DeepMind was one of the original rivals of OpenAI.
So is that
unpack
an enemy? My enemy is my...
That's so crazy. I didn't know about that second part. That's so funny, bro. And I read something saying that Satya Nadella pushed to have Grok, Elon Musk AI company, to have XAI put Grok on Azure. And so that's like so interesting. And bro, this is like, now to expand the goth and emo analogy, if Sam Altman is like going through his goth and emo phase with Microsoft and Satya Nadella is being like the mean parent wanting now to like get back at the kid or some bullshit, you know, like what the fuck, like they're partners, you know, like they have revenue share, like you give them stuff, they give you stuff, you know, like I don't know. Why are you like trying to like mess with them?
A friend, or that just all work with anybody who's the best in the business?
Well, I think that Nadella has realized that putting all of his eggs in one basket with OpenAI is not the best strategy, in part because of the blip, as employees call it, which was the board crisis that fired and then rehired Altman in a span of 5 days. But also because OpenAI doesn't necessarily have a research lead anymore in its capabilities for its models. It certainly has a lead in household name recognition, but as I talk with application developers who are using these AI models every day, they're making their models, their platforms, AI vendor agnostic, because they don't actually think there is a clear leader anymore. And I think Nadella is a very smart business person.
If you were to project out 2 or 3 years from now, we've got Microsoft's stock price up on the screen. That's a company that's had a lot of success, in part because of the OpenAI relationship, this idea that it is ahead of everybody else, given that relationship. What does that relationship look like? Does Microsoft and Mustafa create their own large language models? Are all these things so commoditized that they're worthless? What happens?
They're definitely trying to develop their own in-house models. They're also trying to strike up as many partnerships as possible with other types of models so that they can all be on the Azure platform. And Microsoft can then offer to any customer that's using Azure, here are the full array of options. Pick which one's best for you.
You don't use ChatGPT. Do you not use other?
I do not.
Open source models either? Do you not use any?
I don't use generative AI models that are developed by companies that I think are engaging in a lot of environmental, social, and labor harms at the moment.
Do you know of any that aren't?
No. There are some that are more open source, that are more transparent, that are really trying to develop a better understanding.
Who are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Hugging Face, open source.
Hugging Face, it is a platform.
Technology platform. Okay. They don't develop their own well, sometimes they do, but they're primarily a platform for bringing generative AI models onto the platform. But their primary goal is to try and help people, like scientists, public researchers, policymakers, be able to understand the technology, because in other environments like OpenAI and Anthropic, it's completely behind closed doors.
Yeah, and that was like my thought, because
it's completely behind closed doors.
What's up? Yeah, and you aren't. Guess what? You could go on Hugging Face to find. You could find Meta's models. You could find Google's models. You could find Microsoft's models. Like, it's like that was like a bit of a non-answer, but I think what she there's definitely weight to what she says. But it's just like a little, like, again, it's a moral superiority thing. It's like, I don't know. So, but that was it. That was an interesting perspective. Learn a few new things. Like to hear other people's opinions. But yeah, okay. Last AI, got a lot of AI interviews. Last one. This is Cohere. But it's, I want to highlight it because the revenues have doubled. I genuinely didn't think like revenue would be going up as fast as it is. I thought there would just be much more of like a plateau in terms of like the AI companies making money. And I know, like, and I'm sure like they're still spending a shit ton of money, but it's crazy. And especially like a kind of like, not to like hit Cohere, but I guess like not like a huge AI company still like doubling revenue.
All right. A reasonable question for the audience is, well, why is
this is Dell Technologies, like every tech company was having some conference this week. Dell had like their like Google I/O or Microsoft Build like on Monday or Sunday. But honestly, it's like super enterprisey. Like I didn't even cover it because there's nothing really there.
LLM builder like Cohere at Dell Technologies World. Why would you look so deeply at infrastructure? And I think that very quickly takes us to the discussion around agentic AI, the issue of AI memory, and why having at the edge proximity to where the data's from give value. That's, I think, what we're talking about here in your relationship.
And NVIDIA also has been talking up a lot about edge AI, and also Qualcomm in their Computex keynote this week. They also were talking about like edge AI. I don't really like get it that much. Like I think the idea is like it's just closer to the user, so it could like do things faster. But like how fast? Like is that really?
Yeah,
better?
definitely. So we're here to announce our partnership, and the reason that we're partnering with Dell is because for enterprises, as they're adopting this technology, security is incredibly important, and access to the infrastructure that powers the technology is important. That means GPUs and hardware, which is what Dell does best. And so we're announcing our partnership to deploy our North platform, which is our AI agent platform, on-prem with Dell for their customers.
Interesting.
It's a competitive field. Cohere is kind of seen as the smaller player when you think about Anthropic and OpenAI.
Yeah.
What is your competitive moat? What is it that makes Cohere different, Aidan?
I think what makes us best is our focus and the fact that we're able to deploy so privately. So there's no other provider that's able to provide a product that goes on-prem, that goes on any cloud, and that enterprises feel comfortable plugging in all of their data because it's not being sent to Cohere, it's staying on their infrastructure.
And so that security element is what would push a customer to choose you over one of those names like OpenAI and Anthropic.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're going to build agents, they need to be able to see the information and access the systems that the humans within your organization see and access. And to do that, you have to have a lot of trust in that system. You certainly don't want critical customer data.
Again, it's trust that keeps coming up, I'm telling you.
Going to some other entity and maybe getting compromised. And so Cohere's deployment model is just by far the most secure.
I think Dell's up 35% past month. What the fuck? This is an interesting, like what he's talking about, like having it on-prem. I think the only downside is like it's probably like pretty, like the market's like you're pretty much targeting Fortune 500. Like I imagine like after that it's kind of like crumbs, but I guess like how many companies are buying like full servers and want to like self-host things? I still feel like that's like, I guess it's enterprisey, but that's what Dell does. So
kind of an unlock is Dell and working with Dell. Like in very simple terms, Dell takes an underlying technology, I'm assuming from NVIDIA when we talk about the accelerator, but AMD, Intel, puts it into the server format and helps you build that infrastructure out. But that's not your area of expertise. So just reflect on what it's like working with Dell and how it's allowed you to kind of move more quickly, I suppose.
So I think similar to Cohere, Dell has the trust of the world's enterprises. The most secure and private deployments are powered by Dell. So we've been incredibly lucky to partner with them. For us, they are a go-to-market partner, they're a technology partner, and really they're helping us develop this product north for the enterprises in extremely regulated sectors that have those high privacy security constraints.
Interesting.
There's been reports about
Cohere. That's probably also the, I was saying Fortune 500, but if you do have other requirements, like security requirements, I didn't even think like that's probably like a big market, like any defense sector, government.
Is sort of financial success. I think on a run rate basis or annualized basis, $100 million of revenue, something like that. Talk more about those numbers and the trajectory that you're on as a business selling to enterprise.
Yeah, so since ChatGPT has come out, the enterprise world has kind of struggled to catch up and keep up with the consumer market. But
that's interesting. I'd love to see like some data on that. I thought it was the opposite. I think this is too the problem with like how it's measured, because when you look at like surveys that are like, oh, like are you using like AI in your company, kind of going back to what I said before, that's also lumped in there as just like more traditional like machine learning and like algorithmic development or optimization. Like that's also AI. So and I again, I think when people nowadays think AI, they think like generative AI, like large language models. And so I like, to me, it's like when I read the surveys, it's like, oh, AI is being used in 50% of, businesses. And then he's now like, like, oh, it's like like falling behind consumers. Like, it gets confusing, I guess. It's like, I don't know.
It started now. So last year was kind of the year of the POC. But now we're seeing production. We're seeing these enterprise deployments.
Proof of concept. POC.
Hit the hands of every single employee within the organization. And so it's really started to scale. We've already doubled revenue since the beginning of this year. And so we're seeing a total...
Since the beginning of this year. That's crazy. That's crazy. I also wonder now, we just watched the OpenAI COO, who he said, everyone's claiming it's a year of the AI agents, including myself. But maybe the agents is really what it was needed to get enterprise generative AI like more off the ground, because agents are able to do more specific tasks versus generative AI just being more of like a good general partner to like help you bounce things off of. And it can't necessarily like do things for you in the same sense. So now that agents are here and they're able to like take like a workflow, for example, and like automate that. Maybe that's kind of what the enterprise really needed. And so now that they are able to like offer that up and the technology's here, they're just fucking ripping now. Double the revenue since this year. Like they're not even halfway through the year.
Take off on the enterprise side of the business. Every single employee within the organization. And so it's really started to scale. We've already doubled revenue since the beginning of this year. And so we're seeing a total takeoff on the enterprise side of the business.
Profitable?
We're not profitable yet.
And what are the biggest factors in that? I'm guessing it is compute and talent that keeps you spending money.
Definitely compute. We have to build these models. But I think we're very, very close to crossing that line and becoming profitable.
Wow.
We're not far away. And so the enterprise market's growth is really fueling our own growth. But we'll continue to invest. We want to grow as quickly as possible. And so we'll keep scaling up the team, the compute, and marketing.
Unless I'm mistaken, because I look at the headlines every single day, I think it's been almost a year since you've raised any money. And even those bigger beasts, Anthropic and OpenAI, continue to use various mechanisms to raise funds. What will you do next?
Of course, like we're a startup, so we'll continue to fundraise and fuel the business. We have nothing to announce right now, but you can imagine we'll continue to fundraise and grow as we approach IPO.
If you're in this environment with $100 million annualized
IPO.
revenue, and you think about growth into next year, you said revenue's doubled so far this year, I think you said, right?
More than doubled.
More than doubled. What is it within enterprise that's driving that? Are there specific sectors, in the financial industry or in healthcare, where you're finding you get traction in those bigger deals?
So because of how secure we are, our product really resonates with regulated industries. So think financial services, public sector, telco, energy.
That was way more than industries than I was thinking. I was like defense and like public service. That's a lot more customers than I thought. Wow.
Regulated industries, they currently can't access the technology without having those security concerns.
That was up 30% because it took a shit. Did it like go down before it went up?
Our partnership with Dell, our private deployment model, really lends itself well to that.
It's so funny how things change. There was a time very recently where trying to push a company to go on-prem basically was like unthinkable. We were all moving to the cloud. How hard is it to be not U-turn, but pivot back to a different infrastructure model and say to customers that want to work with you, like, this is the best way of doing it?
I think we've gotten quite good at
it.
What
the fuck? It's 3 months. It's down 4%.
We want our customers to compromise.
How is it to be not U-turn, but pivot back to a different infrastructure model and say to customers that want to work with you, like, this is the best way of doing it?
I think we've gotten quite good at it. We don't want our customers to compromise. And the other piece of it is to really see the ROI of AI and these agents. Those agents need to have access to all of your systems. If you don't trust the technology, you're not going to plug it in to those systems. And so maximizing trust just points in the direction of on-prem or extremely private clouds. And for regulated industries, it's a must-have. It's the only option. And so I think we've gotten quite good at that, and it's not as painful as it used to be.
Aiden, can Dell move as quickly as you need them to?
I definitely think so. I think they are.
Any illustrative example on that?
I think that we were able to get a North instance up and running on Dell within a week. And so the velocity on that side, fitting to their hardware, their rack, that I think proves that the urgency from both sides is there.
Wow. Yeah, he was very well spoken, I will say. He was okay, so that's interesting.
Their rack.
I'm sure there's some more there's some better thing to pick up on this, in terms of strategy, but the fact that they are seeing very good success with agents within regulated industries, kind of like you're saying, that's interesting, and I think that's probably a harder market to break into, regulated industries, because of the trust that you have to build. So arguably, I think the trust, I don't know if you said that, is their moat. The trust is their moat. That's interesting. There's a Cohere. I've just seen them, but again, they're not really a consumer one, so I've never really messed with them, but yeah. Public sector. Interesting. Then it has deployment options. I imagine that they could also, okay, yeah, you could use their infrastructure. Oh, okay, and he said you could bring it to any cloud, so yeah, you could go to AWS, Azure, GCP, Google Cloud, private. Cool, that's interesting. Interesting that they're seeing success too, making money. That's good. All right, let's look at Dell stock. 1 month up 38%. All right, year to date, ooh. 1 year, ooh. Okay, they're good. Doing good 5 years, but yeah, they've had a rough few years here, bro. They fucking tank. Easy. They went to yeah. I guess everyone's had such a large COVID run too. The looking post COVID, it's always crazy. But dang. Okay. We got this. Ooh. Oh, breaking news. Da-na-na-na-na-na. Former Apple design guru John Ive, who, he's kind of designed all the OG Apple stuff, to take expansive role at OpenAI. Holy shit. One, thank fucking goodness, because I hate ChatGPT interface design. Hopefully he could fucking make it, kind of bring some of the Apple design mentality, simple and, be more productive. But okay, let's just read this right now. OpenAI to buy Ivy's startup in $6.5 billion deal. Bro, where the fuck is OpenAI getting the money from too? They just raised 10, they just got 10 billion from fucking SoftBank. Did they, no way they just burned that on something a single, I mean, they've bought a few startups, but just on startup acquisition? Dang, that's interesting. As in CEO Sam Altman work on new generation of devices in other AI products. John Ive, chief architect of the iPhone. Oh, sorry. All right. Chief architect of the iPhone and his design firm are taking over creative and design control at OpenAI, where they will develop consumer devices and other projects that will shape the future look and feel of AI. I also think there's more work to be done on interfacing with AI, not necessarily, but the specific UI or interface. People are trying to use voice. We want to use a chat box. But like, are either of those our best, like, you know, form of interaction with some, you know, like, thing that could have a lot of knowledge? You know, I guess, like, in terms of, like, if you want to maximize, like, productivity, for example, like, is, like, what one would be the best? You know, voice is kind of slow sometimes, but also, like, reading could be slow. Typing could be slow. I guess, like, a brain interface, you know, would probably be the ultimate goal or some shit, but I guess, like, the chat box, the kind of, like, you know, like, this, like, is this the best way? You know? I don't know. You want Jarvis? Actual smart speak recognition? Yeah, man, bro, I swear Google Gemini is, like, almost there. Like, they're kind of getting there. What they talked about with, like, Google I.O. their conference, bro, like, shit. We're getting there. OpenAI Chief Executive Officer Sam Altman and Ivy's design firm LoveFrom have been working on a new device that will move consumers beyond screens, according to people familiar with the matter. They've been collaborating over 2 years on a closely guarded project, considering options including headphones, and other devices with cameras, people have said. So they're focusing on a device? Bro, every AI device has been a fucking flop. A device? Headphones and other devices with cameras. If OpenAI gets into consumer devices, like, and now they have Johnny Ivy. How the fuck do you say his name? I swear it's like John. Johnny? Have I been saying John? Johnny Ivy? Like, Apple is shitting their pants right now. Apple's flopped. Joni. Joni Ivy. Apple's AI launches have all flopped. iPhone sales are kind of stagnating. They hired, you know what, the person who kind of created the iconic look of Apple in Apple's devices. I wonder how much this, I wonder what Apple thinks of this. The former Apple employee, which Apple's down 2% today. I wonder what Microsoft's at. Employees work at OpenAI will extend across all companies' ventures, from future versions of ChatGPT to audio features, its app, and other products, according to people familiar with the matter. Okay, shit, so he's doing much more than just devices. London-born Ivy left Apple in 2019 to found LoveFrom, a design firm that worked for Ferrari, Airbnb, and luxury Italian fashion firm Moncler. Ivy also leads I.O., a company founded last year to design and develop a new family of AI-powered products. Interesting. As part of an unusual deal announced Wednesday, OpenAI will also acquire I.O. in an all-equity deal valued at $6.5 billion. They're essentially buying Johnny Ivy. Like, that's what they're doing. OpenAI acquired a 23% stake in I.O. late last year. People familiar with the matter said. OpenAI's startup fund also invested at the time. Wow. The acquisition of the rest of Ivy's I.O. puts an executive who helped change the relationship between consumer tech and technology at the forefront of a new era of devices. Yeah. I mean, but I think the new era of devices, I mean, I think we'll look at it later, but I think smart glasses are the next device. It's interesting that they said headphones, though. While Ivy and Altman have yet to say so publicly, their efforts is focused on moving consumers away from screens, people said. away from screens. That's... So I guess like voice is, you know, has to be the interaction. IO staff is roughly 55 engineers, scientists, researchers, physicists, and product development specialists will become part of OpenAI, while Love From continues to operate independently. Oh, okay. This seems just like a valuable like talent, like acqui-hire in a way, you know, like talent acquisition. All of these people, I'm sure, would have fit right in OpenAI. OpenAI will be a customer of Love From, and Love From will receive a stake in OpenAI. Whoa, that's probably valuable. I wonder how much. OpenAI is just valued at $300 billion. Like, that's pretty good. The companies expect the transaction to close this summer pending regulatory approval. I have a growing sense that everything I have learned over the last 30 years has led me to this moment, Ivy said in a statement. Altman said he hopes the team can bring some of the delight, wonder, and creative spirit that I first felt using an Apple computer 30 years ago. Ivy and Altman said in a joint statement that their work together grew out of friendship and collaboration. Ivy and Altman said in a joint statement that their work together grew out of friendship. Oh, I already read that. Jesus Christ. Altman has long been fond of Apple and was eager to strike a deal with the iPhone maker when the company sought partnership for the rollout of Apple Intelligence about a year ago. He has idolized co-founder Steve Jobs, even though Altman has been outspoken in his criticism of smartphones and what he sees as toxic aspects of screen addiction. Yeah, I mean, bro, you can't put, like, I know Apple, like, invented it, but, like, you can't, like, put that on Apple. Come on. OpenAI's acquisition of IO points to its growing ambitions as a more consumer-centric company focused on mass-market products and impact. Yeah, and we kind of just heard the Cohere CEO talk about that a bit. Put that on Meta. That's funny. Yeah, or Google. Yeah, definitely Meta. Like, that's like their biggest metric is like time spent, you know, on the website. Yeah, fucking, yeah. Altman recently hired Facebook and Instacart veteran, there we go, just kidding, Fiji Simo. Oh, we actually covered this on stream. An operations-focused executive who's tasked with helping the company become a profitable and publicly traded company. Altman has taken a number of steps to explore devices and hardware options, investing in 2022 in the startup Humane. Bro, that's what I was wondering. We covered. Okay, wait, let me finish this, and then we'll go. Humane, which launched what it called the AI Pin. Yeah, and this is cringe, this launch, with OpenAI's technology that failed to catch on with consumers. While much of Ivy's work at Apple revolved around the specific look and feel of products in the physical world, he also took greater responsibility for software issues on certain devices towards the end of his tenure there. I hope he has more of a say in the software design, because they could do some. That's interesting. This is cool. This is a interesting, very strategic hire by OpenAI. Also, okay, so Humane. Humane. The SPCA comes up when I search Humane. That was interesting. Wait. Did HP acquire this? Like, literally, like actual HP. It literally just directed to HP. What the fuck? Okay. Anyways, there's also Humane. There's also this Humane, which is the Saudi Arabia like state-funded AI company, which I was like, I swear there's already a company named Humane, but I was like, maybe if they're picking this, then maybe not. But bro, this is like fucking Silicon Valley. Can't remember her name. Yeah, Public Investment Fund, the Saudi-backed AI company. Why can't I find their website? Like, why is it not coming up? Saudi AI. All right. Anyways. So it looks like the Elder Humane is gone, so. That's funny. All right. Let's talk about Google now. We had Google I/O yesterday. They launched, it was pretty much mostly AI stuff, or at least like every announcement had some AI thing in it. But one take on it was that Google's holding themselves back in a way because they still need to protect their search business, because that's still the biggest driver of revenue. Like they're ultimately an advertising company still. In that they need to still protect that asset and don't want to change users' behaviors too much, because then they might start using other things, other services and websites. But overall, it's like the definite loser is actually, the people making content, the people who now whose website content will now just be regurgitated, inside the AI via Google summaries, or what, their new like Google Gemini like AI search, kind of like ChatGPT search. And also like think about ChatGPT, it's like you search it, it's like, unless you're someone who always looks at the sources, you're likely just never going to actually go visit the actual website where the content was pulled from, and there's really no benefit to the actual person who made the content. So it's like, why would they want it, to be regurgitated inside ChatGPT? I think there's the argument now is like, it's the new SEO. It's like, you hope people will then go and click to your website, but who knows? This is the Cloudflare CEO talking about 0-click searches and how the search economies, could be disrupted. And then we potentially have an opposing opinion. It says risk around Google search has been greatly exaggerated. So, yeah, and then we'll take a read about this article. What's the article about it? Yeah, this is Cloudflare. Cloudflare is I actually own stock in Cloudflare. Disclose that. Great company to invest in. One of the better ones. They sit in a unique position because they are more of like an internet service company. So they have a lot of data on like actual internet usage, and they actually share a lot of it publicly if you are curious. So they kind of have they have unique data to have some view on this, and also they've been around a long time. They work with like every, not only big tech company, but just a lot of like Fortune 500 type companies. So they're in a unique position to comment on this, I guess. The CEO is very yeah, he has unique takes too sometimes they're just like, bro, like, I don't know. But
our next guest says that 0-click searches where users are finding answers.
Getting warm in here.
Directly on search engines and AI summaries are killing the internet's business model. Joe and I were actually talking about this earlier. Matthew Prince is here. He's the co-founder and CEO of Cloudflare. Good morning to you. It's long been described as the blue link economy, as in you go onto Google, you put the search in, you get all the blue links, you click on one, and Google often makes money if you hit one of the sponsored ones. You think that whole economy is effectively going to be going under here?
Yeah, Andrew, I think that the economy is for sure changing. The best data that we have on this is if you look back 10 years ago, essentially for every 2 pages that Google would crawl, they would send CNBC, anyone who was creating content, 1 visitor for that. The rate that Google crawls at hasn't changed, and yet 6 months ago, the rate was now up to 6 pages scraped for every one visitor, and it's
Wow.
and it's accelerating.
Like tripled. Worse.
That now it's actually 15 scrapes for every one visitor. And what's changing is not that fewer people are searching the internet, it's not that Google is scraping more, it's that more and more of the answers to Google are being answered right on Google's page. That AI box at the top of Google is now absorbing that content that would have gone to the original content creators.
Yep.
And that's the good news for content creators. If you look at OpenAI 6 months ago, it was 250 scrapes to one visitor. If you look at it today, it's almost 1,500 scrapes to one visitor. And what that means is that if you're making money through subscriptions, through advertising, any of the things that content creators are doing today, visitors aren't going to be seeing those ads. They're not going to be buying those subscriptions anymore. And that means it's going to be much, much harder for you to be a content creator.
Yep. That's exactly it. And that's goes to my point of like, you hope that someone clicks through after on ChatGPT, after it searches and regurgitates information. Clearly, though, it's not. They're not. That is not a good sign. 1,500 scrapes to one visit. That shit is crazy.
So Matthew, but one of the questions that I have is the economics of this shift when the user starts to pay. So, for example, I'm a subscriber now to ChatGPT. I think I'm a subscriber to Gemini. Actually, I've got a subscription, I believe, also to Anthropic. But I'm in a...
Don't know how you feel about it. I think I agree too. It's crazy, but yeah, I think it's like I'm. I say that as a content creator, but I'm definitely focusing on YouTube for now, which is a platform that like is hopefully like has a little bit of time. But like, if I was a business, like I would definitely feel like kind of like what like not like helpless, but like how could you change to fix that as a business? And that it's like I don't think there's really an answer. I don't know. Like you hope maybe to be included in the responses on ChatGPT, and then hope that someone clicks through. But it's like, yeah, wait and see.
Unusual and blessed place to be able to pay for these services. Longer term, how are the economics of these businesses going to work if there is no advertising and if things are not being sent back to other people? Pay for these now to ChatGPT. I think I'm a subscriber to Gemini. Actually, I've got a subscription, I believe, also to Anthropic. But I'm in an unusual and blessed place to be able to pay for these services. Longer term, how are the economics of these businesses going to work if there is no advertising and if things are not being sent back to other people?
Well, I think there may be advertising. The advertising might show up in the AI companies, but you're reading that derivative content. You're not reading the original content. Imagine that, I went and said, I'm not going to watch CNBC anymore. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT, what are all the things that...
Blasphemy.
Don't even say it as an example.
As an example.
They're like shame. Like, why?
Well, but
don't even say that.
Okay, so but then the question, but
some other dude right like pops in like.
As a content creator, and that's what we do for a living, there is a fundamental question about whether these services or others ultimately should be paying for some kind of access to this information. And then the question is, what does that business model look like, do you think? And is there any chance of a model ever even being created? Or are the tech companies, like they have in the past, moving so quickly that there's really no opportunity? And by the time something gets settled in court 10 years later, the horse is out of the barn.
Yeah, and they're talking about, I feel like he's talking about fair use. New York Times is suing OpenAI, or OpenAI suing New York Times. But it's all about that fair use. And so it's like, will we have a solution in time for before everything just, goes under? The advertising and AI models, though, fuck that, bro. I know that's coming. That's fuck that.
I think if the answer is court, then you're right. The horse will be out of the barn. But I think the answer can be actually technology. You can use services like Cloudflare, and this is what we're working with the largest content creators to do, to say, you can't access my content if you're an AI crawler.
Yeah, and bro,
unless you
Yes.
pay me for that content. And that's exactly
That's
what
actually
the future has to
crazy.
be. The fuel that runs these AI engines.
Cloudflare has a product called AI Labyrinth that literally uses generative AI against the AI to make it get lost when it's trying to scrape your website if you have this in front of your website. So like Cloudflare is definitely like, you know, I mean they're a business, but like they're helping with that. But I think that's like an interesting way. Yeah, I covered that a while ago. But what he's saying, where it's like he now with Cloudflare, because of their position that they could put themselves in front of a website, like on like a CDN, content delivery network, they can now like control things like that. So like that's so interesting. And I also imagine with the agentic web now expanding and how agents are going to be autonomously doing things, that it could be some sort of like toll for like, okay, you want an agent to like be able to use our website or the AI to scrape our website. It's like, all right, pay the fucking troll. I almost said troll. Pay the toll. The AI's the troll, and we're trying to get the toll from them. Or maybe the troll is the protecting, and then that you give the toll to the troll. I wonder how that would work. And so you could give your agent budget. You could give your agent like a budget. What I'm talking about is a crypto bros wet dream, if I'm being honest. That is what I'm talking about, bro. Fucking crypto bros not wanting no advertising, like micropayments to visit websites, like that would be crazy. I don't know if that would play out, but this is interesting. I like this speculation. Troll is Cloudflare. Yes, yeah, you're right. AI pays the toll. Yeah, that's so funny. Oh, this is Cloudflare. Sorry. Used by 78% of the top 50 Gen AI web products. 250 games.
Is original content. So that content has to get created in order for these AI engines to work. And if you look at the most thoughtful AI companies that are out there, they understand that they have to pay for content. Someone like OpenAI has actually done content deals with a lot of people, but they can't be the suckers. They can't be the only ones paying when their competitors aren't. So what content creators have to do is restrict access to content, create that scarcity, and say, you're not going to get my content unless you're actually paying me for creating that content.
See, the problem is, this is just like union negotiation, but you need like a block of creators to like that have valuable data, because right now it's like someone else will just fucking come up and be the replacement for you if you say no. You know, let's be real. And I think most content creators don't have enough value in their content for them to like be negotiating like that. And I'm talking about myself, you know, it's like, bro, I have zero leverage. Like, if you know, it's like even like big content creators, I feel like they don't have much leverage either, because it's like it would have to be like an entire like CNBC, which is, you know, but unfortunately they have the bargaining power and they also have the value. But it's like all the other little bros, like they're fucking just gone, you know? Like you have zero bargaining power. You need to like come together in numbers. Yeah, that's hard. I do believe what he says, but like they're just gonna move on to the next then if you block it. I don't know.
You know, some people had looked at those OpenAI deals and thought that that was just sort of a way station, sort of you know, something to sort of get over the hump. There is going to be a day where you might be able to remove the content creators completely. I know of a number of sort of, I wouldn't call them news organizations, but sort of news organizations that think that they can sort of cobble together the news, if you will, from not even news content creators, but maybe even, and this is what I think Elon Musk to some degree thinks is possible.
Dude, that's crazy. That's a crazy thought.
What I think Elon Musk to some degree thinks is possible, to be able to create it off of something like an X. News content creators, but maybe even, and this is what I think Elon Musk to some degree thinks is possible, to be able to create it off of something like an X, and what you think that means.
What?
Well, I think in
I don't
that
get
case,
that.
so first of all, I actually am much more optimistic about the future of content creators. I think if content is just sort of randomly strung together, quick hitting, headline first content, the stuff that has sort of driven a lot of the web over the last little bit, I think that is.
I was just like, is that me? Oh, is that me? I like to think I go a little more in depth, but
It's going away. But original content that is actually highly valuable is, I think, going to be more valuable in this future. I'll give you an example. I live a lot of the year in Park City, Utah. I'm a skier. I care enormously whether it snowed more on the east side of the mountain or the west side of the mountain if I'm going to go out skiing. And I pay for a service that's actually going to tell me that. If I'm going to use an AI engine, I'm going to pay for the AI engine that actually has the exclusive access to that unique content. And for
this is my, I agree with
that
this,
weather
though.
forecaster that is there doing the hard work in order to generate that content. For someone like you, who's doing really unique, you're the hardest working guy in the financial press. Like, that's the sort of thing where I think AI companies are going to value that content. They're going to be willing to do deals for that content, but it has to be something where there is exclusivity, where you don't do that for everyone that's out there, and that you actually restrict the access for some of those, for any of the AI companies that are not paying you for the original content you create.
Yeah, and I agree with the end part there, where it's like, yeah, it is about like value, or like originality, I guess. Again, though, that's yeah, it's hard. Does it sound like a good thing? Less garbage out there. That's a good way to spin it. Create meaningful content or die. Yeah, and I agree. Honestly. Yeah. Create value or die. Live free or die. Excuse me. And that's also, it's almost ironic considering right now the general content that does come out of AI is like referred to as AI slop, with the exception of entertainment. Yeah, okay, and that's probably the slop. that's yeah, entertainment is that's a good point. I also think what I like personally, how I'm trying to stand out is authenticity. Like, I feel like I'm very much myself. The human psyche craves slop, yeah. Authenticity, and also, like, I am a human, and I'm just a bro, Just a dude. And I think that's kind of, like, also, like, the appeal, too. So I think if you just bring yourself, and also taste. I have a lot of opinions on taste, and I think that's what also stands out from the AI space. Like I choose a unique spread of content to, that kind of what I'm interested in, but also like based off of like other content I consume, and I kind of bring that here for you guys. And I try and get, like interesting takes, I guess. And so, but really it's just the authenticity and just bringing myself into this, because it's like realistically AI can't do that. They can't have the same connection that I have with someone live streaming right now. That's hopefully where I could stand out. And that's also why I use my face. Like, I would much prefer to just like be a faceless, not show my face, but I also think having a human face here is also a good, that I can make eye contact with. You can make eye contact with. Also, hopefully will be, help stand out a bit. Until AI could just look like human, which we're honestly almost there. Let's be real. Dude just smashed CNBC on purpose. That's funny. All right, that was an interesting. That was actually way more interesting than I thought. So I'm glad I watched that. All right, last video. We're just fucking ripping CNBC today. And then let's read about some stuff.
Let's stay on Google with our next guest, who believes that even though AI is disrupting their core search model, those concerns are overblown. Evercore ISI's head of internet research, Mark Mahaney, is with us. Alphabet is his #1 large cap long. Mark, a little bit of disappointment with the announcements here?
I don't know if there was anything earth-shattering, groundbreaking. But you got all of these nice little data points about where search is now and where it's going. Actually, one of my favorite data points was the 50x increase in AI tokens over the last year. It's just a reminder of how dramatically growing, accelerating is the growth in AI applications kind of across the board. You got a little bit of an update that we're now at 400 million Gemini users versus 350 million. I think it was about a month and a half ago.
That's still... That was monthly active, I think. That's still under... OpenAI has like 500 million weekly active.
And then, yeah, you've got more AI functionality being embedded in search. And there was a small little data point, and I'm not sure it was well stated. I had to double listen to it to make sure I got it right. But I think they were saying that AI overviews is seeing a 10% growth in query growth. In other words, people who use AI overview are growing their queries 10%. And I think AI overview right now is a pretty small percentage of overall Google search queries. But what it tells you is, yeah, it's a more powerful search product. It's more... it's more, I think they use the term, it's more personalized, it's more intelligent, and it's more agentic, whatever. It just makes it a better search product. You improve the search product, people are going to use it more. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think the death of search at Google has been greatly exaggerated, overstated. I think they're...
And that's kind of where the critics are coming in and saying that, like, Google's protecting AI, their search. And so they're kind of like not doing certain AI stuff to protect that. Or that it's just going to go away altogether and that they're just going to start funneling people into like the AI stuff. But again, Google's an advertising company. How are they're going to have to insert ads into the AI stuff and like
improving the product. People are going to continue to search with Google. I don't think you're going to see a dramatic share shift away from Google if they continue to innovate the way that they have the last year and what they're showing today.
Search was up 13% in the first quarter. Operating margins were to 34%, which was their highest, as you pointed out, in 12 years. I mean, this is just extraordinary. So if they add more AI functionality to the main page, is that going to push the ads down?
Yep.
It could. It will also make the ads more relevant. Look, the name of the game isn't to show the most ads. The name of the game is to show the most effective ads from a user's perspective. Like I get the information that I want, but also from an advertiser's perspective, which is I want that lead that I'm paying to click for. I want that to convert really well. And what Google is using AI to do, it's not too dissimilar from what Meta is doing, is using AI to better capture intent, so to better qualify the lead. And it's an auction market. If the lead is more qualified, if it converts better, marketers will bid up for it. So my guess is we've had, I think it's 11 to 15% revenue growth out of search for Google for the last 7 quarters. I think there's a decent shot they do it again for the next 7 quarters. I think the growth in search revenue is much more sustainable than market thinks. If I'm right about that, and they keep showing this for the next 3 or 4 quarters, I think the stock re-rates. And by the way, then there's the rest of Google, which is YouTube, Cloud, and Waymo. And I think these, if you put all those together, are just dramatically worth more than where the stock is now. That's why it's on
Bro, this Google advertising is still insane.
number 1 pick.
What would you say is the breakdown, the share price right now?
Yeah, so I think kind of what he's saying is, even though like the AI stuff might potentially show them less ads, they could create more value per customer if they show ads in front of customers who are more likely to like click on the ad. And so they could use AI to like make it to increase that, so then they could charge more for the ad. So if even though they're showing less, they could charge more. So it kind of like still balances out and they could grow with it. Meta's doing something similar, and he said that with like, again, it's more so like behind the scenes connecting advertisers to users using AI to make sure that it's like, it's more in tune to like their audience that they're going for, the advertisers.
Now, how much of that is Waymo?
I think Waymo's probably worth at least $100 billion, and we're doing what, a $2 billion market cap off the top of my head. So that's still a pretty small percentage, and it's not going to be the majority of the value of it. And if some of the statements that Musk has made about the value of robo-taxis is correct, I don't see why Waymo wouldn't fully participate in that. And I think that the market is ascribing a much bigger value than just $100 billion to Tesla for robo-taxis. So if that's right, and Waymo continues to prove its leadership, that's going to be more value to Google.
If the market's 10xing, the robo-taxis value to Tesla's market cap versus, so then if you 10x Waymo, you get to 20 billion. I mean, you're still not really moving the needle. So you're saying basically, if you buy Alphabet right now, you're kind of getting the Waymo business for free.
Yeah, and we may have switched numbers here, Kelly. We may have made a mistake. I don't know if it's you or me, but I said 100 billion for Waymo. So you 10x that, and
that's $1 trillion.
That's $1 trillion.
So then, is it possible that half of Google's market cap right now is Waymo if Waymo's being assigned the same multiple as Tesla?
Well, I don't think it is. I think it's. I don't think Google gets the credit for Waymo that Tesla is being given for a product that is yet to be proven out in the market. Now, I'm sure I would bet that Tesla is going to be proven right, and Musk is going to be proven right with robotaxis. I'm just sitting here with Google shares where I think, and I'm in a city where Waymo's already been proven. So I just I don't think the market's really glommed onto this fact yet for whatever reason. I understand the reasons. There are other overhangs here related to Google, but that's why one of the reasons I think that Google is so attractive here. There's a bunch of value unlocks.
Interesting. So I guess a Google, granted a Google bull, we will say, someone who's bullish on Google, thinks that they're fine. Advertising and search is gonna still continue. You're gonna continue to grow. Let's see. I can turn my AC off again. I'm cold now. Oops. Google takes aim at AI firms challenging its search dominance. Companies rolling out features that will answer search queries in chatbot-style conversations without classic blue links. Yeah, and part of what Google announced yesterday was essentially a interface like this. It's essentially ChatGPT search, Claude search, Perplexity. It's now just search via the chat interface. That Google didn't have that before, I guess. Or I guess it was like it was only a part of Gemini specifically, but now it's like when you go to google.com, I doubt it's here for me. Yeah, I'm not even signed in. God damn it, bro. Fucking Brave, it's still signing me out. Literally still signing me out. So fucking annoying. Yeah, I still don't have the new search stuff. But you could search now in like a ChatGPT type chat interface, I guess. And that they didn't have that. And it's kind of like more like Perplexity-esque, where it'll kind of assign tasks and it'll go off and like do the tasks. Like Perplexity Pro, maybe. All right, Google's overhauling its iconic search engine to compete more directly with a wave of artificial intelligence chatbots that threaten its core business. The company has started rolling out its search page, what it calls AI mode, which answers search queries in chatbot-style conversations without the standard list of blue links. The option, which Google announced at its developer conference Tuesday, is being added as a tab within search for users in the US. Yeah, it's like, it should pop up like over here or something, like next to this. Let me close some tabs. I have way too many tabs open. Close. Close. Yeah, the change marks Google's most ambitious effort to date to confront the AI upstarts that threaten its flagship search product and large source of revenue. It's a total reimagining of search with more advanced reasoning, said Sundar Pichai, chief executive of Google parent Alphabet. Dang, Alphabet's up 3.5%. Apple is down today too. I'm sure, based off of some of the like Google news. We are now entering a new phase of AI platform shift where decades of research are now becoming reality. Many major tech companies are grappling with the prospect that generative artificial intelligence could disrupt their long-standing dominance and face pressure from Wall Street to embrace AI. It's always ironic, like, you disrupting your own industry. Like, it's just, you did it to yourself. AI chatbots are fundamentally changing the way users search for information. In response to queries, OpenAI's ChatGPT and its competitors aggregate information in conversational responses. Users don't click on multiple links as often as they might while searching with Google. And we just heard Cloudflare CEO say it's significantly less within ChatGPT and like the AI interfaces. Google has performed as much as 90% of the world's internet searches. It could lose traffic and the advertising revenue that follows from it if users shift to AI-driven alternatives. I wonder, what do they link to? AI's threat to Google just got real. That was May 8th. Apple's Alphabet shares slid sharply this month after an Apple executive testified in a federal antitrust case against Google that Apple would likely offer AI options such as ChatGPT or Perplexity in its Safari browser within the next year. Not only that, Google may not even have Chrome in the next few years. So, to get ahead in the AI race, Google has been improving the capabilities of its own AI model and chatbot known as Gemini, and adding AI features to many of its products. Google last year introduced AI overviews to search. The feature uses AI to summarize traditional search results, and usually is displayed at the top of search result page. It now has 1.5 billion monthly users, Google said. This is also why I think like OpenAI should be a little scared. Like both Google and Microsoft have existing platforms that they could distribute their AI products to, and I've heard several interviews saying that like people think that the most value created in terms of like the AI supply chain is going to be at the application layer, which is where Google and Microsoft, in my opinion, have much better lead over ChatGPT and OpenAI just because of the existing platforms and distributions that they already have. OpenAI only has ChatGPT. They don't have any other service or product that they could push their models into. And it's so crazy that Microsoft is literally just everything is built on top of, or almost everything is built on top of OpenAI's models, and they're building the applications for enterprises off of OpenAI's models. If most of the value, in other words, most of the money is to be made on the application layer, it's like Microsoft is just literally taking OpenAI's competition. They're taking OpenAI's customers, and they're just competing with them very aggressively. And we just also saw how Satya Nadella has almost been doing things to like taunt Sam Altman in terms of like hiring and like their decisions, like putting Grok on Azure. I don't know. Like, is the analogy of feeding a pig for slaughter too much? Yeah, bro, that is a good analogy in a way. Yeah, I just feel like Microsoft's doing it quietly. Like, you know, they're just not saying it directly, but like we know they're doing it. Yeah. Google has been experimenting with AI mode in recent months. Bro, my lips are so chapped. In recent months, it provides a search experience similar to what users would get from using other AI chatbots. Yeah, and this is that like new AI search mode that I can't use, I guess. Under the new rollout, people using Google Search can hit on a tab to turn on AI mode. Can hit on a tab, click a button. It will run on Gemini. Google said it also plans to introduce a feature within AI mode, allowing users to upload a photo of themselves and virtually try on clothes while online shopping. Yeah, they really push that. It's also, I just think it's also interesting that like at least ChatGPT, Perplexity, now Google, they're taking on e-commerce, and like I don't know, I guess it's like an interesting like that they're focusing on that early. And now that Google's getting into it, their virtual try-on, like I guess it's like where like is there that much money to be made that they're focusing on that early on? Robbie Stein, Google's vice president of product for search, said the company has considered ways to include ads within AI mode results. Like literally, they already have a plan. I guarantee you, every company probably has some sort of plan to put ads in it. Oh, this is what I'm dreading. This will probably, once they like ads start being like obvious and you can't block them, like fucking, you know, with uBlock Origin or Brave Shields, that'll probably be like when I switch fully to like only local AI. And hopefully by then, like it'll be easier. You can run better models locally. Or there'll be like cheaper machines to buy that could host larger models. We view that as a part of the content mix that people actually want. So that AI ad blockers. Yeah, I just don't know how you would do that. Actually, yeah, using AI against AI, what you could do is you could have it spit out a message and then have another AI read that message and then re-share the message without the ad inside of the message. Like summarize, it's like, okay, tell me this without the ad in it now, but it just does that every time that it thinks there's an ad in it. Black box over the ad, like, yeah. Oh yeah, just like redacted. That's funny. That's funny. The 2020 launch of ChatGPT set off a scramble among tech companies to invest in developing generative AI products. Investors have expressed concerns Google was lagging behind ChatGPT and other AI competitors in the early stages of the race, especially compared with rival Microsoft, which has invested billions in OpenAI. It's actually the inverse now. I think Google is probably almost in the lead. You'd love to see a redacted page without the ads. Bro, I literally went to fucking, like, I visited Eurogamer on mobile. The ads were insane. I'm just gonna turn these off and we could probably just see it. God damn it. Like, look at this. I can't even, like, ad. Like, who, like, this is crazy, bro. This shit's crazy. Like, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ads on screen right now. Yeah, bro, fuck that. This is like me, like, this is like someone like on their apartment, like someone leaves and they have like 9 locks, so like, you know, it's like, I'm like, I gotta turn on my ad blockers, on my blockers. So bad, yeah. Investors, oh yeah. Competition has intensified since during this trial testimony earlier this month, Apple executive Eddie Q also said Google searches in Safari had recently fallen for the first time in 2 decades. Yeah, and I imagine because Google's exclusivity contracts are no longer legal, so considering that they're paying Apple billions of dollars to get to be the default search provider in Safari, I imagine that would go down if that goes away. Google has said it has seen an increase in total searches coming from Apple devices and platforms. AI chatbots aren't the only threat to the foundations of Google's businesses last year. The judge overseeing the federal antitrust case ruled the company was illegally maintaining its search engine monopoly. Yep. It's crazy that is still yet to be decided, like what's going to happen from that, because arguably that could be one of the biggest derailers of Google's like current upwards trajectory. Selling Chrome or having to like license Google search data, which are potentially to the remedies, like that would be very detrimental. Not only to Google, but just like onto the internet in general. Let's be real. The judge is now considering a range of potential remedies, including forcing the sale of the company's Chrome browser. Google executives said in court that the company has been buffeted by competition since federal prosecutors brought the case in 2020. Google presented in court data showing use of Gemini has surged in recent months, but still significantly lags behind that of ChatGPT. Yeah, okay. Because yeah, we just heard like 400 million like potentially monthly active or weekly active. ChatGPT has at least 500 million weekly active, so that's above it. But I do think that still overall, Google is getting more people to use AI, whether they know or not, like the Google search summaries, than ChatGPT has users. You know, I think we just saw like 1.5 billion people have been using like the Google search summaries. That's a lot. That's a lot. Pichai, Sundar Pichai, CEO Google or Alphabet, testified that Gemini is trying to make up ground. He said Google hopes to enter into a distribution agreement with Apple by the middle of this year that would enable Siri to tap Gemini in responding to users' queries. Apple already offers that option with ChatGPT. I think Perplexity is really trying to get it so that they could also be one of those providers too. So there's competition. Interesting. But I guess it still seems, you know, if investors who are, that guy said it's his number one tech long holding, like, I still think Google is going to be like fine. They're also working on like quantum computing, which is, you know, arguably another emerging technology. They are working on other devices, like, you know, their smart platform Android XR, which I think I'm very optimistic about this. I'm excited for kind of more VR AR technology being introduced. So yeah, all right, interesting article, interesting read. Let's actually look. We got a video here from The Verge about hands-on with Android XR. What they're wearing right now looks like the Samsung Project Muhan, which is kind of like supposed to be a competitor to Apple's Apple Vision Pro. And I'm more likely to buy this than I would the Apple Vision Pro, likely just based off of pricing. But also, even though I hate Google, Android is still more open than Apple is. So, I mean, that's kind of just like at least something above them. At least the ecosystem is. And also specifically though with the glasses, the smart glasses is much bigger. I think is going to be like a much bigger industry initially. Every big tech company, Google, Apple, Amazon. I don't know about Microsoft. They're all working on a smart glasses platform. Oh, Meta's the biggest one actually. Meta's probably the furthest ahead of anyone. But they're all working on like some sort of smart glasses platform. Google showed off glasses that they were working on, or at least is using Android XR at Google I/O, and it was cool. Like it was very cool. I'm not gonna deny that. There's definitely like it's the privacy concerns now that like we kind of need to solve. Like there's some creepy shit about like remembering stuff and like that's more so it, or just like not wanting to be recorded when you don't want to, where the data goes, how it's used, who gets at, it's like it's kind of all those questions. That's kind of like the more concerning part, the smart glasses. But all right, let's look at the actual platform here.
We're here at Google I/O, and we just got a hands-on with Samsung's Project Muhan and some prototype Android XR smart glasses. First off, Project Muhan. What is it? It's an immersive XR headset. It's basically an Android-flavored Vision Pro, except it's much lighter, easier to wear, and has a little screw thing in the back that feels a little bit like the old Oculus headsets. Otherwise, the experiences are pretty similar to what you get in a Vision Pro. We saw a demo of an immersive YouTube video. One thing that they pointed out was 3D video based on videos that were not filmed in 3D.
Oh,
so the pitches you could...
I think 3D video is kind of a little like... Does it add that much more to the experience? Maybe it does in the headset. Like Apple's like really trying to sell that 3D video bullshit, and like you like recording it with your fucking glasses on, like in front of the families, or like with the families, or with your family. I don't know.
You can take whatever video you filmed and it just spatializes. Is that a word? Spatializes? Anyway, that's what it does. You'll be able to view stuff cool. The other demo we got was something with Gemini, where you can ask it to take you to any place in the world in Google Maps and kind of get a big immersive look. I went to my old stomping grounds in Musashi Koyama, Tokyo, where I used to live, and it sure was a thing. Now, I know you can't tell from the capture behind me because that's in 2D, but trust me, when you put the thing on, it does look, you do see some depth there. It's just, man, it's really hard to convey what you're seeing in an XR space. Probably.
Also, like, the term XR is kind of confusing because I think the idea now is that these headsets they're augmented, they're also virtual reality. They're augmented reality, they're virtual reality. And so, like, instead of like doing that, they're just saying XR. And so it means like both of them. Because you could interact with the real world, but also like, you know, the virtual, but also it's, you know, yeah, it's like, I guess, is XR the best term?
Probably more exciting is this is a first public look that we've got at Android XR. I got a...
Whoa, wait. Those are the glasses? Is there a camera on these? You can see the little reflection of the screen here.
XR. I got a much more in-depth demo back when they launched in December, but here's what they're willing to show you publicly. So one of the demos I got, you put the glasses on, you tap the side, it brings up Gemini, and you can ask it about the things in front of you.
And this is kind of cool. Like, I could see this like being much more useful, assuming we figure out privacy concerns.
It to compare some paintings in front of me and to recommend which of the books would be good for planning a trip to Japan if I'm not the outdoorsy type. And it recommended one. Cool. Another thing that it did was you could take photos because there's a camera, but since there is a display in front of you, you can actually get a sense of the framing. Now that's something you can't do with the Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses. Take a photo of, oh, I can see a preview of the photo. That's
it's so interesting being able to see this, like the screen on here like this. That's crazy. So it looks like the camera's here. And they have a little like light thing. I know they mentioned this specifically on stream, on the Google I/O stream, where it's like, oh, it's like I see your lights on, so that means you're recording, right? Kind of thing.
View of the photo. That's something
cool.
that we can't do with the Meta Ray-Bans, is see the preview. Oh, I just took one of Viren. Speaking of which, it's very clear that Google is taking a page from Meta's playbook, in the sense that, you know, they're really positioning these headsets and these glasses as a vehicle for Gemini and AI. That's something that Meta is doing with its AI and its glasses as well. The other thing that they're doing is that they're leaning into style. These are hardware.
Are you selling that store today? They're not too expensive, really. The Meta Ray-Ban ones.
Prototypes made by Samsung.
It sucks that you need to have a Meta account to use them. They were cheaper than the pair I bought. Shit.
But they're not going to be what you see when they hit shelves. Instead, Google announced today that they're partnering with Gentle Monster, Warby Parker, you know, really stylish and fashionable brands. If you haven't heard of Gentle Monster yet, trust me, all the celebrities, including Beyonce and Kendrick, are wearing their sunglasses. So that also is kind of a nod to the success.
Warby Parker's stock went up 13% after the announcement.
Success that Meta's had. They've sold 2 million of the Meta Ray-Bans, and it's because, as a wearables reviewer, how many times have I told you, if you're not going to wear it, there's no point. So they want people to be wearing it. And, you know, I've had conversations with the team at Android XR. The idea is to have both a headset and glasses, and eventually they'll converge down the line. But right now, it's about meeting people where they're at, and they think this is 2 different ways to do that. The problem with smart glasses and headsets is that you really have to see it to believe it. And that's very, very, very hard to convey. Like, dude, it's really hard to tell you about what I see and have you be convinced that this is the future. And until we get more of these glasses on people's faces, that's just going to be the reality of it. We're at Google I/O. So many things happening. AI.
Cool. So one of the first partners for the actual like glasses is Xreal. There's a good chance we've looked at these on stream. I went through like a little bit of a smart glasses phase. I guess there's a lot of news, maybe end of last year, around beginning of this, around smart glasses. What the fuck is this video? Project Aura. So this is it. So they already have existing smart glasses. Also, if wait, what is this? Is this like a? This looks like it's like a camera made for smart glasses or something. Interesting. They still have a lot of models. Air 2 Pro, Air 2 Ultra. Which one's higher? Ultra? I want to see how much they cost. Yeah, these are pricey. $700. World's first AR glasses equipped with self-developed spatial computing chip. X-Real Air. AR glasses, incredible value. I honestly still would like to just try one that even just has a screen. I think that would still be, like, interesting. Yeah, because you have to connect, I think, via cable still to, like, your phone. Anyway, so this company is, with Project Aura, they're creating an Android XR powered glasses. They have the cheaper models. Go to Sunglass Hut and try them on. They have, oh, okay, really? Shit, okay. Yeah, I want to try them. Yeah, here it is. Oh, I actually watched this one with these two, this breakout. Alright, looks like there's not really much here, though. Augmented World Expo. Oh, June 10th? Alright, let's add this to the calendar. You guys see that? Bookmark. Alright. X-Real announced a strategic partnership with Google built around Project Aura to expand the ecosystem of spatial computing devices built on Android XR. As part of this collaboration, X-Real unveiled Project Aura at Google I/O Developer Conference, X-Real's next-generation extended reality device. Oh, is that what XR stands for? Extended reality? I genuinely never knew that. I thought XR was just like a replacement as like a letter, you know, like a X being like the variable or something. So it could be like, oh, VR, AR, but it's like XR. I should have known that, considering I covered this. Specifically for the Android XR platform, Project Aura is the second official device announced for Android XR and marks a major milestone for the platform. The introduction of an optical see-through OST. Optical see-through. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's a new acronym I learned. XR device, a lightweight and tethered. This is the key here, tethered, because these are still like you still need a phone or some sort of like separate computing device. And I think the ultimate goal would be to have the glasses be the computing device, so you don't need a phone or a puck or some shit. So these are all still tethered. Cool. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. See ya. A lightweight and tethered cinematic and Gemini AI-powered device, Project Aura brings a large field of view experience into the Android XR family, setting a new standard for immersive, wearable computing. Collaboration also includes Qualcomm, bringing together leading innovation across hardware, silicon, and software to build the next wave of XR experiences. Qualcomm's been a good up-and-comer. They've been really getting their, I mean, I say up-and-coming, they've existed for a long time. They've really been growing a lot lately, it seems like, expanding into much more. I'm sure that they are going to benefit immensely from a lot of the shrinking of CPUs, and, like, you know, they make mobile processors. They also just announced they're getting into server, so maybe someday they'll get into, like, consumer. But they're benefiting I'm sure immensely from the like AR space and now like with the glasses, because you need tiny chips, you need small chips. Project Aura uses Xreal's proven track record in lightweight XR hardware and Android XR software stack, and Qualcomm Snapdragon XR chipsets optimized for spatial computing. Yep, and there it is. Google is thrilled to welcome Xreal to the Android XR family and to build great XR experiences on Project Aura, said Hugo Swart, Senior Director of the XR ecosystem at Google, in a statement. Android XR is the first Android platform built in the Gemini era. It will support a rich ecosystem of immersive devices, both virtual see-through, VST, another acronym, and optical see-through, OSD. Virtual see-through is likely the Project Muhan, like the VR device, because you're probably seeing it, the outside world through a camera, and then optical see-through is like you're actually looking with your own eyes at the real world, you know, through the VR thing, you know, the screen, the glasses. Seems like these are mainly glasses. This is like a VR headset type. By combining our platform with Xreal's leadership and portable XR hardware, we're expanding spatial experiences to OST form factors that are truly intuitive and accessible, representing a pivotal moment in our ecosystem. At XR, we've always been pushed by the boundaries of what XR hardware can do, combining performance, comfort, and design into something people can wear every day, said Chi Zhu, CEO of Xreal, in a statement. Partnering with Google on Android XR takes the vision to the next level. Project Aura reflects the power of this collaboration, merging a robust platform with advanced chipsets and our experience in optical systems. We believe this breakthrough moment for real-world XR. And then looks like Qualcomm decided to power Xreal's new Android XR device. This collaboration marks a significant step forward in the expansion of Android XR ecosystem. Working with Xreal, Snapdragon allows amazing immersive experiences to come to life. Unique optical see-through products. Okay, corporate talk. Unveiling of Project Aura marks a call to action for developers. Xreal said. Xreal, Google, and Qualcomm invite the developer community to begin envisioning new applications and use cases for this next generation of XR. Developers already building for headsets on the platform will be able to easily bring their apps to Project Aura. Project Aura makes its public debut today. Further details will be announced at Augmented World Expo in June 2025, later this year. Cool. I'm excited for these. Just smart glasses in general. I think it's going to be cool. All right. One of the last stories here, and then we'll end on a video. Fortnite returns to the App Store for iPhone and iPad in the US. There's some drama around this. I mean, Epic Games and Apple have been fighting quite a bit. We covered that very in depth here on stream. Just a little bit of context. The Epic Games sued Apple way back because Epic said that Apple has a monopoly on the payment system. They purposely updated their app to go around the in-app payment system on in the App Store to go to the web. They then sued, lost pretty much everything except the one thing, saying that Apple can't take a cut of payments, or that Apple has to allow them to offer their own payment service, like for example on the web. Apple then implemented a 27% fee still, even if you make purchases on the web. Epic was like, that goes against the court ruling. The court agreed and like literally scolded them and recommended criminal contempt charges to one of the Apple employees who testified and lied in court. And there's so much more drama around that. Like, what Apple did was very shitty. Anyway, so then Epic, on this win, wanted to now update Fortnite to include the web payments that go around the in-app payment system on Apple. And Apple has been delaying, sandbagging, if you will, approving the update, even though Spotify, literally like days after the case was ruled in Epic's favor, Spotify updated their app to go to offer web payments and go around the in-app store, and Apple approved that. But of course, with Fortnite, they were sandbagging, and so as a result, Epic Games sued Apple again to be like, you're purposely not like update you're sandbagging on adding our app to the App Store and improving our update. So that was kind of the drama, but finally it returned to the App Store. So after a nearly 5-year hiatus, Fortnite, and also on top of that, there were so many like clones of Fortnite popping up that were named. It would be like Fort, it was just like a riff on the name of Fortnite, or like Battle Royale Fort, game, some, like just to mess with it. And Epic Games filed some like to take some of them down, and Apple complied, but they wouldn't like approve the update. So it's like, what is happening? But the idea was that even though Apple banned Fortnite from the App Store, they were still selling advertising against Fortnite. And so just kind of like Apple's trying to double dip, I guess, is how I see it. They want to have their cake and eat it too. And unfortunately, court said you can't. Have your cake and eat it too is essentially the bane of, it's the epitome of capitalism. Let's be real. After a nearly 5-year hiatus, Fortnite is back on the App Store for iPhone and iPad users in the United States. Epic Games announced the return of the Battle Royale gaming app this afternoon, and you can head to the Apple Store now to download it. Fortnite's also back on the Epic Games Store and Alt Store in the European Union. Again, Apple's monopoly didn't hold up, and especially in the EU, so Apple has to allow third-party app stores on the iPhone. And so Epic Games, of course, launched their own, and there's another one called Alt Store. Okay, Fortnite is back. Apple kicked Fortnite off the App Store in August 2020 after Epic Games added a backdoor payment method to the game to circumvent Apple's in-app payment system. Epic's US Apple developer account was also banned at this time. I didn't actually realize they straight up banned their account. A multi-year legal battle then ensued between the two companies. With an initial ruling announced in September 2021, both Epic and Apple appealed that ruling. The latest big development in the Epic and Apple legal case came earlier this month when Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers issued an injunction barring Apple from charging commission or otherwise interfering with developers' ability to direct customers to payment methods outside of the App Store. On May 9th, Epic Games announced that it had submitted Fortnite to the App Store in the United States using its Epic Games Sweden account. Oh, what the heck? I didn't realize it was like they had to do shit like this. The version of Fortnite submitted used both Apple's in-app purchase system as well as an external payment option through Epic Games Store. Bro, so the fact that they're still using the Apple in-app payment system too was kind of like, because I think what Epic Games does, or what Tim Sweeney said they're going to do, is if you buy it on their website, they'll give you more V-Bucks. They'll give you like a discount, which is generally how it also works in like e-commerce. Like a lot of times if you go direct to a company's website instead of buying on Amazon, they'll offer you the product for cheaper because they don't have to give a cut to Amazon. So I mean, it seems like they're taking a similar approach, and the fact that they're also still offering the in-app purchase. 1 week later, Epic claimed that Apple had blocked its Fortnite submission worldwide, including its availability in alternative app marketplaces in the European Union. Dang. Apple, however, said it did not take action to block Fortnite's availability in the European Union. Instead, it asked Epic Games to resubmit the EU update without including the US storefront. Okay, seems very specific. Up until this point, however, Apple had not indicated whether it would reinstate the app to the App Store. Instead, in a letter to Epic Games, Apple said it would not take action on the Fortnite app submission until the court decided on its request for a pause on the initial injunction. What? Until the court decided on its request for a pause on the initial injunction. But the court said starting immediately, the rules have to go into effect. This seems like Apple's like not really being like, they're not acting in good faith, is what I would say. Epic Games sent a letter to Judge Gonzalez-Rogers calling on the court to require that Apple promptly accept any compliant Epic app, including Fortnite, for distribution on the US storefront of the App Store. But the fact that someone like Spotify submitted it and just immediately was like, yeah, you're good to go, like that to me seems like Apple's not playing favorites. Like that, like this is just such a bad look to Apple. Like I don't know. Like why are they taking this fight? I mean, I know it's money, but like I just feel like it's like the PR around it is just like it's just bad. The situation took another turn yesterday when Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers said that the Apple official personally responsible for ensuring compliance would have to appear in court if Epic and Apple failed to resolve the matter. This is the accountability though that big tech needs. It's like, yeah, the personal. It's like there's a person saying no. It's like, okay, you don't want to play fair, then come on, like, you know. If you're so confident in what you're saying, then come to court, you know? It's like, and we'll question you. That person will need to be fully prepared to answer any questions on the topic during a hearing on May 27th. One day later, Apple has seemingly relented, and Fortnite is once again available on the App Store. Apple has not commented. Like, this shit is crazy, bro. Like, Apple's just, they're being way too uptight about this, and like, the fact that the court is also, like, the judges are also, like, kind of, like, scolding Apple in a way is kind of, like, telling as well. Because Apple pretty, like, you know, Apple won this case overall. Like, the original case, Apple won 9 out of 10, like, whatever, like, 9 out of 10 of the motions put forward. I don't know what court lingo is. And so, like, Apple pretty much won. Like, they majority won. And the fact that they still won and they're acting like this on this single thing, yeah. Joint submitted that they have resolved all issues presented by the motion to enforce filed on May 16th, and no further submission by the parties or action by the court are required with respect to that motion. Crazy times. But there's similar issues now with Microsoft and Xbox. Xbox mobile game store launch stymied by Apple, says Microsoft, in support of Epic's legal win. Microsoft have sided with Epic in its feud against Apple, claiming that the iPhone maker has stymied the company's efforts to launch its Xbox mobile game store. Back in May last year, a year ago, Microsoft announced plans to release a new Xbox mobile game store. At this time, the company envisioned it to be ready for the release by that summer. However, this did not happen. Now, Microsoft has filed a legal brief in support of Epic Games as part of Apple's appeal against a recent ruling. Like, yeah, it's crazy. Which follows a 5-year legal battle between Apple and Epic, and has now resulted in Fortnite making its return to the App Store in the US. Here, Microsoft shed more light on the delay to its own mobile store. Microsoft stated it wishes to offer consumers a workable solution by launching its own online store, but efforts have been stymied by Apple in its strict App Store rules. Now, this was all, even though Microsoft is supporting this, it's still in competition with Epic Games, because Epic Games is launching the exact same thing. They want to launch their own game store, their App Store on the iPhone, specifically in the EU, because I think that's only where it's legally allowed right now. But now that other big tech companies are getting involved in this like platform war, so to speak, Apple is, again, it's just a fucking bad look. It's just a very bad look for Apple. As shared by The Verge, this is how Microsoft explains its current situation. The district court's injunction allows Apple to maintain its in-app exclusivity, but at least should have enabled Microsoft to offer consumers a workable solution by launching its own online store. accessible via link out for in-app items to be purchased off app. Oh, and use in games or other apps. And that is what Microsoft wants to do, but even this solution has been stymied by Apple. Oh, okay. So what I'm seeing now is Microsoft's like, oh, we want to launch an Xbox store, but like they're still going to comply with the ruling in the sense that they're just going to reroute people to the web to buy stuff, which then could be used like in app or on, the iOS platform. And so they're like, oh, we're launching our own store, even though you can't launch your own app store because of the workaround of the web payment now. It seems like they're using that as their like silver bullet. Prior to the district court's most recent order, Microsoft has been unable to implement linked out payments or even inform customers that alternative purchases method exist because of the Apple's new anti-steering policies that restrict Microsoft's communication to users and impose an even higher economic cost to Microsoft before the injunction. Yeah, I mean, higher economic costs, that's what it comes down to. Money. As noted by the publication, the recent court ruling does make it possible for Microsoft to launch its mobile store, but the company still wants to ensure Apple is appealing against the ruling is unsuccessful in order to avoid having to potentially remove its own store further down the line. It does make it possible for Microsoft to launch its mobile store, but the company still wants to ensure Apple's appeal against IC. So now there's other third parties who don't want their appeal to be successful. Microsoft, also Spotify, that's a big one. I should do a roundup of like who has made a app store, who's made a who's made updates to their app store, to their apps in the app store that go around Apple's in-app payment system, because all of those people who have done that are going to be they have incentives for this appeal, Apple's appeal, to not go through. And now that Microsoft, second largest company, sometimes second, third largest company, right behind Apple. Interesting. Microsoft notes in its filing that Apple makes no argument that the technical or policy changes cannot be undone, and that the company's own experience managing app stores confirms that Apple's policies could be restored if Apple ultimately prevails on appeal. Of course. But I think the idea is that Microsoft doesn't want the uncertainty. They don't want to invest in setting this, Xbox store up if Apple's just going to appeal, and then their entire plan is just stymied, as they're saying. So that's a legit concern. And it's also, just thinking about similar issues to compare it to. Tariffs are the exact same way. Businesses, because of the tariffs keep going in and out, at least here in the United States, the Trump administration keeps flip-flopping, pausing, making carve-outs. There's uncertainty, and businesses don't want to invest in things when they're uncertain that their investments are not going to play out. Similar seems like to hear with Microsoft in this appeal. That's interesting. Wonder what The Verge, if they had the court. No, they don't have it. Big tech drama. That's what this is. That's why I say that's what I cover. Big tech drama. Big tech drama. All right, let's end on a video. We got a space video about the Space Force. I talk a lot about China on stream here, just more as like a geopolitics strategy. We're racing China in several races right now, mainly being AI. But there's also a kind of a bit of a space race. The United States is literally fucking shooting ourselves in the foot with our funding of NASA and stuff. Let's be real. But China is ramping up space. They're catching up to the likes of, in terms of launch cadence, to the likes of SpaceX. They have their own international space station outside of the United States and Russia and ESA, you know, like the United States' space station. They have satellites. They have been launching, you know, like rovers and shit to the moon on the south side, where there's theoretically like ice or like, you know, more materials, and it's kind of just more unexplored. But that's kind of where people are vying for space base, just because of the potential resources down there. And also, I think there's like an idea that like if one country deems it important, then another country does. So if China deems that space important, then the United States is probably like, okay, we also need to say that's important. So, you know, I think that's just kind of the competition there. So I'm curious to see what the Space Force's plans are to beat it, because right now it seems like there's not really much there.
You might have heard that the U.S. has a Space Force, but you may not be aware of just how much the military relies.
Also, I was in the Air Force. I followed this closely for quite a long time. I also have a cousin in the Space Force, so I have some family in here.
Eyes on Space Force assets for things like detecting missile launches, guiding warships, launching precision strikes, and spying on adversaries. But as space becomes more crowded and contested, U.S. space systems are facing a growing array of threats.
It's one of China's most ambitious space missions yet.
Russian nukes in space. Alarm bells were sounding throughout Washington.
And the Space Force says it's shifting to a war-fighting posture.
Bro. I know exactly where this is. This is funny. Fucking MTIs.
War-fighting posture.
We have to secure our nation's interests in, from, and to space. It's as simple as that.
We traveled to the Pentagon in January to learn more about how countries like Russia and China are trying to challenge U.S. dominance in space, and how the Space Force is working to stay on the leading edge. The Space Force became its own branch of the military just 4 years ago, and its leader is General Chance Saltzman, the second ever Chief of Space Operations.
What has the Space Force accomplished in those 4 years that you think shows why the Space Force should be its own military branch?
And I to me, there's actually controversy around even if they should be their own branch. The Air Force did. It makes sense for the Air Force to hold on to like just do all the stuff the Space Force is doing. I guess like it seems like we're kind of like wasting resources creating a completely separate branch when an existing branch already did all of that. I don't know, like logistics wise, if like having your own branch like gives you other benefits, but I'm not exactly sure how much it's needed, especially now that like we do a lot of space stuff, but like we still are not like doing a lot of things, like at least with the in terms of like actually in space. Like we launch satellites, you know, military is huge on satellite launching, and you know, spy operations for, you know, relying on satellite for like spy operations and such, just data gathering, intelligence. But I don't know. I guess I just don't really know how much we need Space Force. Once we actually like start doing more things in space, I could see a use for it. But we're dishing out a shit ton of money when it's just like we keep cutting funding for like NASA and things, which is like actually doing all the heavy lifting for the Space Force. Like, I don't know. So I think they should have just kept the Air Force controlling it.
Foremost, we have elevated the discussion of space to inside the Department of Defense to a service level. And that's not inconsequential. Every discussion that happens in the Joint Chiefs of Staff sessions, I can bring a space perspective. That never happened when there wasn't a Space Force.
That's actually a good point. I will say that is a legit point. More so like advocating for, because like again, if the Air Force was doing all that, they would have to be, they're doing a lot, so like there's more like negotiation likely to be happening. Now the Space Force could come in and be like, I want this thing, or like, you know, like I think we should do this because of this thing we're doing in the Space Force, whereas the Air Force would likely have to like put it on the back burner or kind of like maybe lump it in, and there's not as much like, you know, much like specific strategy around that. I don't know, but I could see that being beneficial, like he kind of said. I don't disagree there.
The U.S. began using space technology.
Still not sold, but
technologies like GPS and satellite communications to fight wars. And for decades, those systems advanced without facing any serious challenges. Then, in 2007, China first demonstrated that it could shoot down a satellite with a missile, an event General Saltzman observed from the Joint Space Operations Center.
What was that day like?
I think we all realized space is not the same after this, that this is now a contested environment. There are operational weapon systems that are going to hold at risk the satellites that we hold dear, and now we have to respond.
Have there been any other days similar to the gravity of that day that you've experienced?
Yeah, two come to mind. One, the Russians did the same thing in 21,
India
where they
did it
destroyed
too.
a satellite. But the other one is the hypersonic test that the Chinese did. That's a game changer. That's a space-to-ground weapon.
Since then, the threats and competition have only grown. The U.S. still has by far the most satellites in orbit, including commercial, government, and military spacecraft. But adversaries have been racing to catch up and develop ways to take out U.S. systems.
We actually covered on stream. We looked at Goldman Sachs did a research report on the satellite industry. They estimate China will have something like 2 to 3 times as many satellites, like tens of thousands. I want to say they said like 70,000 by the year like 2040 or something, 2050. But the idea that we also like the Starlink, this constellation internet style, satellite internet style providers that's kind of popped up, like Starlink, I can't even think of another one, but China's working on their own version of that. And so there's going to be competition in terms of even like where to put satellites in space. It's already getting, like the low Earth orbit's very competitive in terms of like where to put it. And that's only going to get exacerbated, especially as we start launching like massive troves of satellites. Like, every Starlink launch from SpaceX is like, adding tens of satellites. And they're doing those like almost weekly. And that's just like a single example, I guess. Like but China's gonna be even more. Like they're gonna surpass us. And also, there's actually a lot to unpack here. I'm not sure. I'll keep it short, but there's also There's also an interesting tension point too, because there is some sort of like organization that manages manages who could launch satellites where in space, and China has already submitted plans for like thousands of satellites. So the tensions are very high in terms of even like where to put satellites in space.
Does China pose in space?
Substantial. I think that's the best way to describe it. Two things worry me most about it. One is the quality of the capabilities that they're putting on orbit, and the pace with which they're putting them on orbit. There's just a number of weapon systems that actually can cause us problems that we're going to have to contend with in that contested space, and they are developing them very rapidly.
What about Russia? Does Russia continue to be a space power or a space threat?
Absolutely. We monitor and assess that. They are still investing in their space capabilities. They still have the intentions to build weapons for space, and we are monitoring, assessing, and responding to them.
Both Beijing and Moscow have been racing to develop a range of space weapons. Some of those on the ground include lasers and high-powered microwaves that can blind space sensors, jammers that can disrupt GPS and communications, and more missiles that can take out satellites. They've also been developing space weapons, like satellites that could kidnap others out of orbit, and even nuclear-armed space weapons that could destroy a huge amount of military and civilian spacecraft. The Pentagon doesn't discuss its own offensive space capabilities, and while the U.S. says China remains the pacing threat, intelligence about a Russian effort to develop a nuclear weapon for space has rocked Washington, news that broke in the weeks after we spoke with General Saltzman. The Wall Street Journal has reported that Russia launched a research spacecraft to test components for the nuke 2 years ago, just before its invasion of Ukraine. On the conflict in Ukraine, General Saltzman said it has served as a wake-up call about how important space technologies are on the battlefield.
Right out of the gate, we learned how critical space was going to be, because both sides started attacking the other side's space capabilities. You don't attack things that are irrelevant. You attack things that are important.
Is there any concern that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran
that's kind of like the similar in the sense of like, if China thinks something is important, then we also kind of have to think it's important too, vice versa.
Collaborate and do more together in space?
Yes, where they have weaknesses in one area, they make up for it with a partnership in another, and they have shown inclinations to do that.
To contend with evolving threats, the Space Force sees strength in numbers, a concept known as proliferation. Take this missile warning system, which scans for infrared heat signatures, as an example. Instead of operating just a handful of satellites for a specific mission, which could be vulnerable to attack, the Space Force aims to operate a huge number of smaller satellites across different orbits. It's a concept that SpaceX has proven with its network of thousands of Starlink satellites.
That's a much more resilient architecture because an adversary has a lot harder time disrupting thousands of satellites than it would one or two.
And I never thought about it in terms of like a defense strategy. Proliferation.
For help fielding these massive constellations of satellites, the Space Force is seeking to leverage American innovation and lean on commercial companies. A major shift from the old model of the government owning and operating space systems.
What has the explosion of private capital in the space meant for you?
Access to more mission set. The cost of launch per pound to orbit used to be very high. As they've dropped the launch costs, we've been able to think about, well, maybe we can do this mission from space now because we can launch more satellites at a cheaper price point, so it's viable.
When you launch satellites, space planes, other missions, you're using private rockets.
Yes.
Is the Space Force too dependent on private companies right now?
That's not the way I would describe it. The military, really, we don't build things ourselves. We rely on companies to build them for us, and we contract them to build it, whether it's a tank or an airplane or a rocket in this case. As long as we have competitive services, then we're in good shape executing taxpayer dollars.
So where do the Space Force's nearly 14,000 Guardians stationed across the country
I'd throw in that taxpayer dollar comment there.
Guardians stationed across the country and around the world come into play?
This is it?
Among other things, they're responsible for supporting launches and operating different types of spacecraft.
That's why it's like, is there really that much of a point for the Space Force? Like, are we using money or tax dollars efficiently? You brought up tax dollars.
Critical to military operations, like GPS satellites, missile warning sensors, surveillance equipment, weather tracking instruments, and satellite communications gear. Guardians also track thousands of other satellites and pieces of space debris across various orbits and protect ground systems that are critical to satellite operations.
There's national interest beyond the military with military space systems, and so we have to have access. We have to be able to launch, continuously put new spacecraft in orbit. We have to protect the domain in space from potential adversaries, as well as just trajectories, like I said, that could be unsafe. And then from space, we need to make sure that we protect the links and the ground systems that actually can bring that data back down from space.
Despite the seriousness of its mission,
this show actually was okay. The Space Force on Netflix. I watched the first season. It was very satirical. Like almost like it was like too much.
Space Force has been mocked by comedians and TV shows.
Seriously though, a Space Force? Please wait until NASA finds life before you try to kill it.
Has that affected your credibility?
I don't think so. I think the Guardians that do the missions in the Space Force know exactly how critical their missions are. Again, it's about the criticality of the space. And now we bring a seriousness and a focus on how best to deal with all the challenges that are arising in space, something we didn't necessarily have before we had a Space Force.
Yeah, I think the biggest argument is kind of what he said in the beginning. Now we could advocate specifically for space stuff, in like joint session meetings with, all the rest of the military. I think that's probably the biggest selling point. Although I do think it was like started as a joke. Like I don't know, like yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's like that's the biggest argument, but we're probably too early, maybe. I don't know. Don't know. All right, that was interesting. That's all I got planned for today's stream, though. Today's Wednesday, so we'll be back tomorrow, Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific. Cover some more news. See if there's anything else that comes from Microsoft Build or Google I/O. Breakout sessions. But yeah, subscribe, follow, subscribe on YouTube, follow. Hope you enjoyed the stream today, learned something new, were entertained. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, continue the news. Tech news, emerging technology. Cool. I appreciate everyone showing up, hanging out. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific. Bye.